My name is Erica Turner. I'm 29 years old and I've spent the last decade of my life quietly building a career in finance. My sister Grace has always lived life on her own terms, reckless, impulsive, and always looking for shortcuts. She's the kind of person who never had to try too hard and yet somehow still landed on her feet. And for a long time I hated it. Tonight, I was sitting in my apartment, reviewing some work for tomorrow's meeting when the doorbell rang. It was later than I expected, and a part of me didn't want to answer it. But I knew exactly who it was the moment I heard her voice through the door. "Erica, open up. It's me, Grace." I sighed, trying to ignore the knot of frustration in my chest, but still I got up and opened the door. There she was, standing in the hallway, with that signature mischievous grin that she always wore when she had something up her sleeve. "I need your help," she said, her voice suddenly serious. "I know you're busy, but it's important." I barely had time to respond before she walked right in like she owned the place. Grace had always done that. She barged in, never asking, never waiting. Her disregard for boundaries was something I had come to accept over the years, but not tonight. I was done. "What is it this time, Grace?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. "You know I have work to do." She paced around, looking at my neatly organized space with that same superior look she always had. I could see her mind working, plotting something, but I wasn't sure what. Then she stopped, turned, and looked at me directly. "Okay," she said, "here's the thing. I need money. A lot of money. And you're the only one who can help me." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you need money for, Grace? Are we talking about some new crazy investment idea of yours, or is this something else?" She hesitated, but only for a moment. Then she sat down, hands clasped in front of her. "I don't want to go into the details right now, but let's just say I've found a way to solve some of my problems. But I need a little seed money to get it started." I could see the wheels turning in her head. I knew exactly what she was thinking. Grace thought I'd just hand over whatever she wanted, no questions asked. But this time something felt different. The conversation wasn't about money, it was about control. I stood up and crossed the room, folding my arms across my chest. "I'm not giving you money for whatever nonsense you've come up with this time. You've done this before, Grace. This isn't the first time you've asked me to bail you out." Her face fell for a second, but she quickly recovered. "You don't understand," she said. "This time it's different. I'll pay you back, I swear. You won't even miss it." I leaned against the counter, my mind racing. Grace wasn't asking for a loan. She was taking something. I had been so focused on the things I had worked so hard for that I never even saw her move in the background. But now, I could feel it. The undercurrent of manipulation, of her trying to take advantage of me again. "I'm done, Grace," I said, the decision final in my voice. "You need to stop trying to pull me into whatever this is." Her eyes flashed for a moment, anger, but then it quickly shifted to something else. She looked almost relieved, as if she'd been waiting for me to say those exact words. "Okay," she said, her voice now lower, more deliberate. "Maybe I have a different plan then." That was when I realized something. The game had already started, and I hadn't even known I was playing. My sister, who had spent our entire lives looking for ways to manipulate me into giving her things, was about to take this one step too far. The days that followed that conversation were clouded by an uneasy silence. Grace hadn't spoken to me again directly, but I could feel the shift. There was a tension in the air every time I checked my phone or heard a knock at the door. My instincts were telling me something was off. I had lived with Grace long enough to recognize when she was scheming, and this time, I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. I sat in my office the next afternoon, reviewing some financial statements when I received an unexpected call. It was from a mutual friend of Grace's and mine, someone I hadn't heard from in years. Jake, a guy who used to hang around the edges of our family gatherings, mostly just observing but never really getting involved. "Hey Erica," Jake said, his voice filled with a tone I couldn't quite place. "You busy?" "I'm in the middle of something," I replied, trying to keep the conversation short. "What's up?" "I think you should know something," he said quickly. "It's about Grace." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What about her?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Jake spoke again. "Look, I don't want to get involved in whatever's going on between you two, but I know Grace has been asking around. She's looking for money, and not just the kind she would ever admit to." Grace's expression shifted from feigned confusion to something else, something darker. Her smile tightened, but she didn't speak for a moment. Then slowly she leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You're so naive, Erica. You think this is all about money? It's not." I felt my pulse quicken. "Then what is it about?" She stared at me for a long time before speaking. You've been so caught up in your perfect little life, haven't you? So wrapped up in your job, your career, that you don't even notice how many people are using you. This isn't about the money. It's about control. You've had all the control for so long, Erica. And I want it. A knot twisted in my stomach. The words she spoke weren't a threat. They were a confession. This wasn't just about money. Grace wanted to take everything I had, everything I worked for. She wanted to take me down, piece by piece, until there was nothing left. I stood up straight, my resolve hardening. You can try, Grace. But you won't get away with it this time. She shrugged, still smiling that same cold smile. We'll see, won't we? I walked out of her apartment, my mind racing with possibilities. Grace had crossed a line and she didn't even know it yet. She thought she was in control, but she hadn't realized that I'd been watching her, preparing for this moment all along. And now it was my turn. It wasn't just about the money anymore. Grace's plan to manipulate me to take what I had worked for had shifted the dynamic between us permanently. What started as a financial request had quickly turned into a game of control, a game she thought she could win. But this time I wasn't going to let her have her way. The next few days passed in a blur, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was about to happen. Grace's behavior grew increasingly erratic. She stopped calling, stopped texting. When I reached out, her answers were short, curt, and full of excuses. I knew she was up to something, but the pieces hadn't fallen into place just yet. It wasn't until I received a call from my bank's fraud department that I understood what she was planning. Miss Turner, the voice on the other end of the phone said, we've noticed some suspicious activity on your account. Several large transfers to an unrecognized account. Can you confirm these transactions? My blood ran cold. No, I haven't made any transfers, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Who are these transactions being made to? There are several large payments going to an account linked to Grace Turner, the voice said. Your sister. I gripped the phone tighter, feeling a surge of panic. Grace had gone too far. She hadn't just tried to manipulate me into handing over money, she had taken it. She had bypassed everything, using my name to transfer funds behind my back. She had stolen from me and I hadn't even noticed. Cancel the transactions, I said, my voice suddenly clear with determination. Do whatever you need to. And don't let her access my account again. The line went silent for a moment before the voice returned. We've put a hold on your account and the transfers are being reversed. You should receive a new account number within the next 48 hours. I hung up, my heart racing. This was it. Grace had overplayed her hand, and now the consequences were catching up to her. I felt a strange mixture of anger and relief. I had finally caught her. But it was clear, she wasn't just a reckless sister anymore, she was a threat to everything I had built. I needed to confront her again. This time it would be different. This time I would be in control. I drove to her apartment, my hands steady on the wheel, but my mind was racing. I wasn't going to walk into her trap again. She thought she had the upper hand, but that was about to change. When I arrived, I didn't wait for her to answer the door. I knocked sharply, not giving her the chance to play any games. The door opened and there she stood, her face a mask of calm. But I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes. She knew the jig was up. Erica, what's going on? She asked, her voice too sweet, too careful. She knew this conversation wasn't going to be easy, and she didn't want to face it. You took money from my account, I said, my voice cold. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I wouldn't find out, but I did. You've been stealing from me, Grace. Her expression faltered for just a moment. It wasn't guilt, it was fear. But then she quickly recovered, masking it with that same arrogant attitude she always had. You don't understand, she said, crossing her arms. I needed it, Erica. You're the one with everything. You wouldn't miss it. I was just trying to make my life easier. Your life. I shot back. You've been trying to make my life easier, Grace? By taking what's mine? By stealing from me? She looked at me, her eyes narrowing. You don't get it, do you? I've been stuck in your shadow for years. Everyone always saw you as the one who made it, the one who had it all. And I've had to watch it from the sidelines. You think I'm the one who doesn't get it? I'm the one who's been left out. You think this is about being left out? I asked, my voice sharp. This is about stealing. This is about you trying to take everything I've worked for. You thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. And now you're going to face the consequences. Grace didn't speak for a moment, and I could see the anger bubbling up inside her. She was trying to keep it together, but she was losing control. She had underestimated me. This isn't over, she said finally, her voice low. You might have won this round, but you don't know what's coming next. I stood there for a moment, watching her. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't the one who had to keep trying to prove myself. I wasn't the one who had to keep giving Grace chances. The power had shifted. "I'm done, Grace," I said quietly, turning to leave. "You'll figure it out. But not with my help." As I walked away, I knew this was only the beginning. But for once I felt in control. And that was more than enough. It had only been a couple of days since the confrontation, but I could already feel Grace's simmering anger. I had no illusions about her giving up easily. Grace never did anything halfway. If she was going to keep playing this game, I needed to be a step ahead. I couldn't afford to let her pull me into her chaos any longer. I had learned a lot over the years, about Grace, about myself, and most importantly, about how to read people. Grace had always relied on her ability to charm, to manipulate, and to push people into giving her what she wanted. But now she had crossed a line, and it was time to turn the tables. I went to work the next morning, my mind already working on my plan. I had already spoken to my bank, and they had informed me that the funds Grace had transferred had been reversed. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she had done. I wasn't going to let her think she could manipulate me again. I had an idea, but it would take some time. I needed to find a way to make her believe she was still in control while I quietly set the perfect trap. The next time Grace called me, I picked up without hesitation. I wasn't going to be the one to let her make the first move. "Erica, I need to talk to you." Grace's voice came through the phone, her tone just a bit too sweet. "Can we meet up? I want to explain everything." I could hear the desperation in her voice. She knew she had messed up. She knew that I wasn't buying her excuses anymore. But I wasn't going to make it easy for her. "I don't think there's much to explain, Grace," I said, trying to sound indifferent. "You took money from me. You used me. And now you want me to give you another chance." No, she interrupted quickly. "I'm not asking for a chance, Erica. I'm just trying to make it right. Please just meet me." I hesitated for a moment, but only a moment. "Fine. We'll meet, but this is the last time. Understand?" "Thank you," she said, sounding almost relieved. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop downtown, a place we used to visit together when things were simpler. I knew it well, and I knew she'd feel comfortable there. That was the whole point. When I arrived, Grace was already sitting at a table by the window, her arms crossed tightly in front of her. She looked nervous, a side of her I rarely saw. Normally she had this effortless charm about her, but today she seemed on edge. I took my seat across from her, and she immediately launched into her apology, but it was clear she wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry she had been caught. "I know I messed up," Grace said, her eyes flicking nervously around the room. "But I never meant to hurt you. I needed the money. I've made some bad decisions, and I thought this was the only way out." "You think stealing from me was the way out?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "You really thought I wouldn't notice? That I'd just let you get away with it?" "I wasn't thinking clearly," she replied, her voice cracking slightly. "I didn't want to hurt you. I couldn't find another way." "Grace, this is exactly what you do," I said, leaning forward slightly. "You manipulate. You lie. And when things don't go your way, you try to play the victim. But I'm done being a part of your mess." For a moment, Grace said nothing. She was staring down at her hands, her fingers twisting together as if trying to figure out her next move. I could see her mind working, but I wasn't about to make it easy for her. "I've already taken steps to make sure you don't get access to my accounts again," I added. "You've already gone too far." Her eyes snapped up to meet mine, and there it was, the anger bubbling to the surface. The part of Grace that I had come to know all too well. The part that never accepted defeat. "You think you've won?" she spat, her voice low and dangerous. "You haven't seen anything yet." But I didn't flinch. I didn't move. I simply watched her, my gaze steady and unyielding. "You can threaten me all you want, Grace. It won't change anything. You've already lost." She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair back in the process. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice full of venom. "You think you've figured me out, but you haven't." I didn't respond as she stormed out of the coffee shop, slamming the door behind her. But as I sat there, I knew she wasn't done. Grace never gave up that easily. But neither was I. I spent the next few days keeping my distance from Grace, letting the tension settle. I wasn't going to give her any more chances to manipulate me. I had already set the wheels in motion, and now it was time to see her plan unravel, whether she realized it or not. Grace was still texting me, sending long, pleading messages, claiming she was trying to fix things. I ignored most of them, but I did read one. Just one. "I'm sorry, Erica. I never meant for it to go this far. I'll make things right." Please just let me explain. It was the same old Grace. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. Within hours of the information reaching the right people, the calls started flooding in. I received a message from the bank confirming that the fraudulent transfers had been flagged, and they were already investigating further. Jake, the mutual friend who had helped me, was working in the background, ensuring that Grace's connections in the business world would get the wake-up call they deserved. The weight of the situation hung in the air, thick and suffocating, but I felt strangely calm. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about finally putting an end to Grace's manipulation. The fact that she had been using me, trying to take what I had worked so hard for, it had to stop. I spent the next day in meetings working through the aftermath. I'm not going to help her, I said, my decision clear. But I want to know if she's really in danger, or if this is just another one of her plays. I'll find out, Jake said. I'll keep an eye on her. I hung up and sat back in my chair, staring at the phone in my hand. The weight of the situation settled in. Grace had pushed me too far this time. There was no coming back from this. And then, just as I was about to set the phone down, another message from Grace came through. I'm at the police station. They're questioning me about the money transfers. Erica, please, you're the only one who can save me. I don't want to go to jail. I'm sorry for everything I did, but I didn't mean for it to get this far. This was it. Grace was cornered, and now she was playing her last card. She was trying to drag me into her mess, and I had to make a choice. I took a deep breath, trying to control the storm of emotions that had begun to bubble up inside me. The message from Grace had caught me off guard. She was at the police station, pleading for my help. I knew this was the moment where everything would either fall apart or settle into place. I wasn't going to let my sister manipulate me into cleaning up her mess again. The old part of me, the part that always rushed in to save Grace, wanted to go straight to her. But the new me, the one who had learned to stand my ground, told me to hold back. Grace had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. But something still tugged at me. I wasn't heartless. She was family, and no matter how much she had hurt me, no matter how many times she had betrayed me, I still couldn't completely ignore her. I grabbed my coat and made my way out of the apartment. I wasn't going to walk in blindly, thinking I could fix things. No, this time I would make sure she saw the reality of her actions. This time I would let her know that I wasn't there to save her. I was there to make sure she understood the consequences of the chaos she had caused. When I arrived at the police station, I could already see the tension in the air. Grace was sitting in a chair, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She looked nothing like the confident, manipulative sister I'd known. She looked small, vulnerable. But I wasn't about to let that cloud my judgment. I walked up to the desk and gave my name to the officer. I'm Erica Turner. I'm here to see my sister, Grace Turner. The officer looked up at me, then nodded. Right this way. I followed him down the narrow hallway to a small room where Grace was sitting. The moment she saw me, her face brightened with relief. But I didn't return the smile. This wasn't a moment for comfort. It was a moment for confrontation. She stood up quickly, rushing toward me. Erica, thank God. I didn't know who else to call. I held up my hand, stopping her before she could get any closer. Stop. Just stop. She froze, her eyes widening in surprise. You think I'm going to save you? I asked, my voice steady but full of authority. You've been using me for years, Grace. And now you're sitting here, expecting me to just fix everything. Well, I'm not going to do that. You made your choices. You did this to yourself. Grace's face shifted from relief to frustration. You don't understand. They're accusing me of fraud. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just needed some help. I shook my head, cutting her off. No, Grace. You didn't need help. You needed to stop taking from everyone around you. And I'm done being your fallback. She stumbled back, visibly shaken by my words. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her armor. But I didn't mean to hurt you, Erica. I just wanted a way out. I thought you'd help me. You thought wrong, I said, stepping closer. You thought I'd keep enabling you. You thought I'd keep bailing you out every single time you screwed up. But I'm done. You're going to have to face the consequences of your actions, just like anyone else. Her face flushed with anger, but she didn't yell. She didn't fight back. Instead, she just stood there, her shoulders slumped as if she finally realized the truth. I don't want to go to jail, she whispered, her voice breaking. I looked at her, my heart heavy but resolute. I can't save you from that, Grace. You put yourself in this position. You have to figure this out on your own now. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of the situation settled between us like an anchor. Grace had always known how to push my buttons, how to make me feel responsible for her mistakes. But not anymore. I had given her enough chances and now I was done. "I'll be leaving now," I said, turning toward the door. "This is where we part ways." I heard her call my name just as I reached for the handle. "Erica, please?" I didn't look back. Instead, I walked out, leaving Grace in that sterile room, where she had to face the reality of everything she had done. Days passed after that confrontation at the police station. Grace's world, once so full of manipulation and calculated moves, was now unraveling. I hadn't heard from her and honestly I didn't expect to. She had no leverage left. There was nothing she could use to pull me back in. The weight of the situation was heavy. "Erica," he said as I sat down, "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About Grace and about everything." I didn't say anything at first, just letting him speak. I wasn't going to interrupt. I wanted to hear what he had to say. "I've always known you were capable," he continued, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "But I didn't understand. Not like I should have." I raised an eyebrow, not sure what he meant by that. "What do you mean?" "I've been blind, Erica," he said, his voice almost apologetic. "I've always focused on Grace. I've always thought she would be the one to succeed. But I see now that I've missed something. I see now what you've done. I see what you've built for yourself. And I'm proud of you. I just didn't know how to say it before." I was stunned into silence. My father had never been one to offer praise easily. Growing up, I had always felt like I was living in Grace's shadow. But here he was, admitting that he had missed it all, the strength, the resilience, the hard work I had put in. "I didn't need you to say it," I said quietly, finally speaking up. "I've been doing this for myself. Not for you. Not for anyone else." He nodded slowly. "I know. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize it." We sat there for a while, both of us in silence, letting the weight of the conversation settle. It wasn't a perfect moment, but it was enough. I had never needed his approval to be who I was, but hearing it from him felt freeing. As I left the cafe, I realized something important. Grace had tried to drag me down with her. She had tried to manipulate me, to control me, to make me part of her mess. But I had learned to stand on my own. And now, even my father, someone who had never fully seen me, had finally acknowledged who I was. I didn't need Grace's approval. I didn't need anyone's approval. I had already created the life I wanted on my terms. And that, more than anything, was enough. It had been a few months since that fateful confrontation with Grace. The weight of everything, my family's blind favoritism, Grace's manipulation, and the constant struggle for validation, had all lifted. It wasn't an instant transformation. It wasn't a grand shift in how I saw the world. But there was an undeniable clarity now. I had built my own future. I had stopped living in the shadows of my sister, my father, or anyone else. I had finally done it for me. The transition from that moment was gradual, but with each passing day, I felt more at peace. I wasn't just moving on from Grace. I was moving forward. Grace's fallout was hers to deal with, and I had no intention of stepping back into the chaos she had created. She had tried to manipulate me, but I had become someone who wouldn't be easily swayed anymore. I focused on my career, my goals, and my own personal growth. I spent my days working with the finance firm I had built, making the kind of strategic decisions I had always dreamed of. Every step I took now felt purposeful, driven by my own ambition and not the expectations of anyone else. One evening, as I was heading home from work, I decided to take a different route. I passed by the old house we grew up in. The windows were still the same, closed off, untouched. It was strange to think about how much time had passed, how much had changed, and how much of that old world no longer mattered. As I stood there for a moment, reflecting, I realized that everything I had endured had led me to this place. I was no longer the Erica who had silently hoped for approval. I had proven that I didn't need anyone's validation to be successful. And that realization filled me with a deep sense of pride. A few days later, I received an unexpected call. It was from Grace. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Erica," she said quietly, her voice sounding different, softer, almost defeated. "I'm sorry." I paused for a moment, unsure how to respond. Grace had never apologized before, not genuinely. And as much as I wanted to just hang up, I knew this was a moment for closure. Not for me but for her. "What do you want, Grace?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "I've been trying to fix things," she said, her words slow and deliberate. "I've screwed up. I know. But I'm trying to turn things around. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry for everything I did." I didn't respond immediately. It was a long silence before I spoke again, my tone unchanged. "I don't need your apology, Grace. What you did, that's something you have to deal with. but I'm not part of it anymore. I know, she replied quietly. I just wanted you to know. We hung up and I let the silence settle around me. Grace had made her choices just as I had made mine. And while I didn't forgive her for everything, I understood one thing. She was finally facing the consequences of her actions just like I had. The next few months passed without drama, without manipulation. I kept building my life step by step. And each day felt like a new beginning. I was no longer caught in the web Grace had tried to weave for me. I was free. There was no need for further confrontation, no need for more family drama. I had taken control of my life. And that quiet victory was all I needed.